Okay, so welcome back to Human Resources. Again, just a reminder, don't forget the Learn Twos in your syllabus. All of the HSC units are important. Keep an eye on them. Make sure you understand them. See if you can answer them. Okay, so we are out to looking at influences now. So we'll be looking at the key influences on human resource management. Okay, we will be focusing on stakeholders, legal influences, economic, technology, social influences, and ethics and corporate social responsibility. Starting with influence number one, stakeholders. So stakeholders in the human resource management process. Okay, so the first type of stakeholder that we're going to look at is employers. So employers handle human resource management issues on a daily basis, such as developing programs that focus on improving business performance. Remember, when you've got Mr. Burns as the employer, his main priority is, let's look at our objectives, to increase profit, minimize costs and be competitive, expand or grow the business, and develop new products. Our second stakeholder type is employees. Employees, on average, are more highly educated than in the past. Many feel driven to build their career through a succession of jobs in a range of different organisations. Once upon a time, a job was something many people held for life. They used to be given a gold watch to celebrate 50 years with the same company. That is not what the trend is these days in employment. Most people have a number of jobs and sometimes in quite varied and different areas of work rather than just staying with one career trajectory all the way through their working life. The employees' particular objectives that they have are they are always looking for better wages, better working conditions, and some form of job security. Now you'll see there's a video attached. You just click on the Simpsons picture that is there on the version of the PowerPoint that's on the Google Classroom. I will say that the Simpsons clips that I have attached, they are more fun than informational, but they are always still relevant to what we're talking about, and they're only really short. So if you need a moment to have a laugh or just, unwind for 2 seconds, please make sure you click on the videos. Okay, our third type of stakeholder we have here are employer associations. So employer associations are organisations that represent and assist employers, our Mr. Burnses. They help negotiate awards covering the employees of their members and covering the employers in the same or related industry. Employer associations are designed to benefit the employers, and so they have the same objectives: profit maximisation, minimisation of costs, etc., so that the business is more profitable and successful. Okay, so this is one of the embedded clips that unfortunately doesn't work on the Google Classroom. There are 3 embedded clips on this particular presentation. They are slightly older, so I'm just going to give you a bit of a rundown on what each clip was about. They are older examples, so it's just basically to help with your understanding rather than give you something in particular to cite. So the first clip that goes here was about paid parental leave. So paid parental leave was introduced. It gave 18 weeks of paid leave of the minimum wage at the time to new parents. This was a taxpayer-funded initiative, which obviously had the support of the unions. Employer associations were not as happy with this new government-mandated paid parental leave. There was some concerns whether or not individual workplaces would reduce the type of leave and schemes that they currently had in place because the government one was and is an extra on top of what workplaces already had. Now, why were employer groups against this type of thing? If somebody is on leave for longer and if they have the financial capabilities of not having to return to work as quickly, that could mean having to find temporary employees, training them, etc., to be able to do the job that the person on leave was doing. Now, this obviously costs time and money to a business, and time and money do not equal profits. So therefore, employer associations were pretty much against this. Okay, our fourth stakeholder are trade unions. Trade unions are organisations formed by employees in an industry, trade or occupation to represent them in efforts to improve wages and the working conditions of their members. Membership has declined in recent decades, and we'll have a look at some data on that in a moment. Now, again, employees form trade unions, so therefore their objectives are the same as the employees: better pay, better working conditions, and job stability and security. Okay, you've got another little clip there. Again, just a fun one, still relevant, but more for fun. Okay, you have a short video here which just shows you a short history of trade unions, where they come from, what they're about. Definitely giving you some more information here rather than just a fun clip this time. None of the clips that I have attached are excessively long, so please go to the Google Classroom PowerPoint and click on whatever the image is that the green arrow is pointing at to watch the video. Okay, this is our second embedded clip. This was a news item looking at trade unions. There was a particular industry that laid off a number of workers. They couldn't sustain the size of the workforce that they had, and the unions felt that the union members were particularly targeted during these layoffs, so there was a series of strikes so that union members could essentially be reinstated in their job, because remember, the union is there to look after their members. They thought their members were being treated unfairly, and they took some action to try and rectify that situation. Okay, this one is obviously available on the Google Classroom because it's got that green click to play arrow. This is just a little look at the Teachers Federation, of which I and a lot of your fellow teachers are members of. So this is a trade union where you all know somebody that is affected by what they do and is part of what they do. So this is just a little bit more of an example that you might find a bit more relatable. Okay, I mentioned before union rates falling. So this graph here shows from 86 to 2007. You can see in 1986 that about 50% of males that were employed were members of a union, and just under 40% of females. Moved down to 2007, and I say down because membership numbers declined. So you've got approximately, well, let's say about 19% of males who are employed now being members of union. That's more than halved. And women approximately, say about 18%, which is roughly about half of what it was in 1986. Now, many reasons that union membership has declined is because working conditions have overall, in most cases and industries, generally improved over time, and so people feel less inclined to be members of the union because they don't think that they need an organisation fighting for their rights or better conditions for them. Okay, just slightly more updated data here. Yes, it's small, a little bit hard to see, but you can see that we extend beyond 2007 all the way to 2014 here. And you will see that the gradient, that's a math thing, right? I mean, you know, the angle has flattened out somewhat compared to what it was in the early 90s. Okay, so this gets us started saying the thing that those people that believe in unionism or belong to a particularly strong trade union, they're pretty much at their level, and it's expected maybe that will stay relatively stable now. Okay, again, we've got it divided into males, females, and then we have just people in general. Very gender normative. We've got blue for boys and a pinky red colour for girls and green just for people. But again, you can see it doesn't really matter terribly too much if it's male or female. The incident of decline has been pretty steady for all groups. Okay, stakeholder number 5 are governments and government organisations. The government has 3 key objectives that impact on human resource management, because government plays a number of different roles. So number 1, they are legislators. That is, that they pass laws in Parliament, both state and federal level, which provides the legal framework for industrial relations. So what can and can't be done. Number 2, they are also an employer. In fact, they employ almost 33% of Australian workers. Some examples of jobs that are government jobs are teachers, nurses, clerks, police officers, and I'm sure you could probably think of about 20 other examples if you really tried. Number 3, the government is also an economic manager. They attempt to gain stable economic growth and high standards of living for all Australians. With the current coronavirus, you may have seen that the government has made a number of economic decisions. In particular, let's look at welfare payments. So welfare recipients or the job seeker payment has gone up. This is to keep spending happening in the economy so that things don't slow down. This is to try to reduce the number of jobs being lost. And for those jobs that are being lost due to shutdowns because of what is happening currently, there is a new job keeper payment. What happens there is if a business has, if they've lost more than 30%, or if they've only got 30% or less of what their usual business was, they're entitled to apply for the job keeper payments. These are payments of $1,500 per fortnight to an employer so that they can continue to keep on their workers. In some cases where those workers have had to be laid off, they are now still able to be paid by the employer even if they're not working, which means they effectively have not lost their job. Their job is just sitting there in limbo. Now, this is a great incentive and it works for everybody all around. So keeping people off of traditional unemployment is a good thing. It gives those people who are at the moment in a temporarily very difficult situation some sense of job stability and security, that they do have a job to go back to. For the employers, it means that when if everything goes back to normal, they won't have to put out ads to hire new staff, go through all the interviewing process and the training process so people can learn to do the job. They will be able just to ask their staff to come back to work and they can just continue on as they did before. So it's a win-win for everybody, and that is an economic decision that the government has made to help try to keep the economy stable during these times. Okay, embedded clip number 3. This one, it was about the government. And here the government acknowledged that women were not receiving equal pay, predominantly because women were working in a lot of industries that were dubbed, let's say, feminine jobs once upon a time. A lot of those jobs were in what we call caring type industries, things like childcare, looking after the elderly. So essentially the government recognised, okay, it's a lot of women in these particular jobs, and compared to the rest of society, they're not getting paid very well. So they brought in measures to increase the pay for those types of jobs. Obviously, it's made unions very happy. Employer associations not so much. They actually made a couple of threats that employees would have their hours cut due to the increased cost in paying for them. But this was a piece of government legislation which was meant to bring about equality for the people. The people are who vote for the politicians, so it was them actually doing their job. Oh, pressing the wrong button. Okay. Stakeholder number 6, society. Society is you, me, everyone that is affected by things. So how can society have an impact on stakeholders? A number of different ways. The one I'm going to focus on today is going back to the idea of governments and people who vote for them, voting. So voters make their views clearly known if there are threats to their employment or conditions at work, whether as a result of planned legislation or economic conditions. For example, many voters were unhappy with the Work Choices Act of 2005. That took away some employee rights. Partially as a result of this, the then Liberal government was defeated by Labor in 2007. The legislation faced strong opposition from unions and the public, who argued that it was overcomplex and biased in favour of employers. Its public impact was limited, and despite the government's strong commitment, it was repealed in 2009 and replaced with what we have now, which is the Fair Work Act. Okay, to help you understand those two things a little bit better, Work Choices and the Fair Work Act, I've attached 2 small clips to the end of this presentation. Again, go to the Google Classroom version, click on the image that the green arrow is pointing to. So this one is the Work Choices one, and this is the link to watch the small one on the Fair Work Act. Okay guys, you need to, if you haven't already been stopping and pausing to do the work in your work booklets, go to the Google Classroom version and do that there, or watch the videos there. But you do need to fill out the pages in your work booklet that go with the sections that I have covered so far. All right, catch you later.